If you haven't any coal in the stove and you freeze in the winter and you curse to the wind at the face, when you haven't any shoes on your feet and your coat's thin as paper and you look 30 pounds underweight, when you go.
You know what pisses me off? When people do those historically accurate Disney princesses and then they make Tiana a flapper. They always make Tiana a flapper. And it makes me wonder, y'all know that there were women in the 1920s that weren't flappers, right? Like, a lot of women were not flappers. Tiana would not have been a flapper. Like, flappers were like they partied. Tiana did not party. That's like a main part of the movie, is that she's hardworking, she has 2 jobs, she doesn't have leisure time. That's like a major point of her character. She wouldn't have been a flapper. She does wear that sort of flapper-esque costume in Almost There, but Almost There is a fantasy scene that she's imagining. She wouldn't have worn that in her everyday life, much less as a princess.
One of my favorite history facts is that for nearly a century, there was a whole debate among historians around young Queen Victoria's health. In her diaries, she describes being in excruciating pain nearly every month, says that it feels like her insides are twisting and turning. She can't get out of bed, she has to cancel pretty much all of her appointments, and these historians, they couldn't understand why her doctors were not diagnosing her, were not treating her, because clearly this was very serious. And they started posthumously diagnosing her. Like, one claimed that she had Crohn's disease, like all of that stuff. That's until like 40 years ago, female historians came in the mix, took one look at these symptoms and said, yeah, that's just PMS. And it really is that painful.
Praising our leaders, we're getting in tune. The music's played by the madman. Forever young, I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever? Forever, forever, forever young. I want to be forever young. Do you really want to live forever?
So you may not know what you're looking at, but you're looking at a historical marker marking the place where Emmett Till's body was found after his brutal murder. Since the Emmett Till Memorial Commission placed this marker in 2007, it has either been ripped from the ground, vandalized, or, as you can see, it has become a cultural thing that the people down in Muddy, Mississippi and the surrounding areas take the time to deface, destroy, or otherwise disrespect this marker. Some hate groups have even stopped by to film in front of this marker. Because of all of this, a 500-pound bulletproof steel marker has been placed in its place. And I don't think there is a better metaphor for how Black history is treated in this country. Too many folks discount it, discredit it, disregard it, disrespect it, deface it. And that's why we have to protect it, validate it, learn from it, teach it to our children so that things like this will never happen again.
Image of the dead, dead ends in my mind.
Well, you don't know me, but I know you.
Are you shitting my dick?
Here's something that might completely change your understanding of human history. When you think of ancient Greece, this is probably what you think of, right? Socrates, Plato, Pythagorean theorem, just like intellectual olive oil vibes. But this is not the ancient Greece that Homer was born into. Homer, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey about the Trojan Wars, was born before this during the Greek Dark Ages. What? There were Greek Dark Ages? So before the people that we think of as Greeks, there were the Mycenaeans. They were incredibly advanced. They built these massive palatial compounds. They had great technology, and then suddenly they disappeared like most other Bronze Age civilizations around 1200 BC, and we have no idea why. Greece is plunged into a dark age, they lose the written language, and so Homer grows up around these ruins of palaces that they couldn't build. Of course these men were gods. And we would leave it at that, except we found Troy. It was a real city, and so even though this is a work of fiction, there was probably some truth to it with the Mycenaeans going to war.
And I don't understand, why can't any man hit it like, get it hot, make it, it's a fact.
If I were Queen Victoria, I would do the sensible thing and let my husband run the country. Have you heard about those women in Seneca Falls that are trying to get the vote? It's practically a cult. The only cult you'll catch me joining is the cult of domesticity. The 4 virtues of womanhood are piety, purity, submissiveness, and domesticity. Mr. Jeffrey, I did not see you there. The gentleman that wrote that was such a genius. If only there was some way he could vocally record his thoughts on women for all to hear. A woman wrote that. Oh, nevertheless, it is a wonderful piece of writing. You really must read it. If I had a husband, I too would dedicate myself to becoming the angel of his house. Why, Mr. Jeffrey, I simply did not see you once again. Oh, you used red paper to color your lips. What's next, showing an ankle? I don't mean to harlot shame. Work. Well, I suppose it does some good to have hobbies so you can help build a happy home for your husband. You intend to work for a living? And not as a teacher? I simply needed my smelling salts after that. No matter though, surely if I had fainted, then Mr. Jeffrey would be more than happy to catch me. He's not there. One of my favorite history fun facts for parties is that archaeologists embarrassingly often misgender their finds. For example, because there was a child, the assumption was made that the adult was the mother, but no, it was a man. For nearly a century, they assumed that this was the skeleton of a male hunter-gatherer found with his spear, but then a female archaeologist looked up close at the pelvis and found that it was a woman. These two embracing people were assumed to be lovers, a husband and a wife, but no, they were boys. So now they're assuming they were either siblings or cousins.
Getting dressed in Venice in 1510, I start in my ghioppa and stockings. The voluminous sleeves are gathered onto narrow cuffs that are held in place with cuff links. And around my head I have a ferroniere, and next comes my gamurra. The detachable sleeves of the gamurra are wide and taper down to the wrists. The hair is gathered together with a long ribbon into a sort of loose, long ponytail. The skirts of the gamurra are very voluminous, and because we are in the Venice region, it is slightly short-waisted. And the neckline of the gamurra is often decorated with different sort of ribbons and fancy embroideries and beading. I went for a fairly simple matching color brocaded ribbon, but they could be completely jewel encrusted and in contrasting colors and however bright and loud you wanted it and could afford it. And the detachable sleeves could be changed for different ones for a different look.
got some more random history if you'd like to hear it. 14 years before the Titanic sank, Morgan Robertson wrote a novella called Futility, which was about a large unsinkable ship called Titan that hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank, and strangely enough it didn't have enough lifeboats. In the 16th century, the wealthy elite used to eat dead bodies, with Egyptian mummies being their favourite because it was believed the cadaver could cure illness. Hans Scarf was the Luftwaffe's master interrogator, whose technique was just to be as nice as possible. To get information from prisoners, he would take them outside for walks without any guards present. He would bake homemade goods for them, or he would even have a tea party with them, and his techniques were so successful it was later incorporated into the US military training program. And one of the best-selling novels of the 15th century is an erotic novel called The Tale of Two Lovers, and it was actually written by Pope Pius II before he assumed his religious position.
Spectacular. Give me 14 of them right now.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's in here?
I don't care. Don't tell me.
No, I'm going to tell you. 2 ingredients. Sweet potato and eggs.
Fabulous.
If you want to get into a chilly lake, you need to acclimatize. You take your arms. Acclimatize. Acclimatize. Double acclimatize. No acclimatize. Partial acclimatize. Sarah, count me off.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good day, I'm Bob the Necromancer, and today we're doing an unboxing.